Okay, the very last example in the notes here are us just kind of talking through an example that's asking you basically how could you increase the power of this particular test. So it says we have a gaming website. They have made a claim that 20% of the students between the ages of 8 and 18 play video games at least one time a day. You think that this claim is false and that the true proportion is actually less than 20%. So you decide to test the following hypotheses. Okay, again, here's the claim of equality. The alternative is that it's less. And you're going to take a sample of 1,000 students and you're going to run a significance level of 5%. So you have a web applet, it does a calculation, and it cites that the power of the test is 0.78. Okay? Remember, power is a probability. It's the probability of not making a type 2 error. Okay? And it cites the power of this test against an alternative p. This would be an alternative if the true proportion was really 0.17. Okay? It says explain in simple language what the power 0.78 against the alternative p-value of 0.17 means in this setting. Okay, by the way, this example right here is really similar to what problem 57 on your homework is asking. Okay, this is what this means. Okay, you take the alternative. Okay, alternative means not alternative hypothesis, but this means let's assume that this was the true population proportion, 0.17. Okay, if the true proportion of students ages 8 to 18 who play video games at least once a day is really 0.17, then there is a 0.78 or 78% chance that you will conclude there is, sorry about this typo, this is supposed to be convincing evidence that the true proportion is less than 20%, meaning we correctly rejected the null hypothesis. Okay? So when they tell you, hey, the power of this test is a certain number against an alternative, that's saying, assuming this is the truth, these are the chances that you would correctly reject the null hypothesis in favor of that alternative. Okay? You might need to look back at this example. That is the interpretation right here that you're going to want to use when you do number 57. Okay? Now, the rest of these are relatively simple. It says if you were to do this same test here, keeping the significance level the same. So we're going to keep it at, did they name it here? I guess they didn't even, oh yeah, 5%. And keep the same alternative p-value. Okay? What would you do with your sample size if you wanted to gain higher power? You want to increase the odds of correctly rejecting the null hypothesis. And in doing this, what is this going to cost you? Okay? Well, if you want to increase your power, you should increase the sample size. That will always increase power. Okay? It'll increase the likelihood of avoiding a type 2 error. Now, if you're actually doing a study, things that it could cost you is it could cost your time and it could cost your money, because the more people you survey, that takes more time, it takes more money to be able to conduct all those things. Okay? So increase sample size if you want to increase power. Okay? If you're going to keep the sample size the same and you're going to keep the same alternative p, what would you need to do to the significance level if you wanted to gain higher power, and what does this cost you? Okay? Again, if you increase the alpha level, the significance level, that will also increase the power, but it could increase the likelihood of making a type 1 error. Okay? Remember, a type 1 error is when you accidentally reject a null hypothesis that was true. Okay? So that's what alpha is. And so as you raise alpha, you're raising the likelihood of a type 1 error, but you're decreasing the likelihood of a type 2 error, which in effect, would increase your power. Okay. Lastly, it says if you were to keep the sample size the same and the significance level the same, what would you need to do to the alternative p? Okay, that's the true proportion if you were going to gain higher power. And why don't we have control over the alternative p? Okay, so again, these are all increased, by the way. You would increase the effect size. And what the effect size is, again, there's a little typo here I'll have you fix. It's the difference between the true population proportion and the hypothesized p. Okay? Well, we don't really know what the true population proportion is, so we can't really control the effect size since that's something that is kind of a mystery and we don't know what it is. And so this one here is a little bit unrealistic for us to try to claim like we have any type of control over that. But for sure, you can always increase the significance level and you can always increase the sample size if you want to increase power.